Welcome, everyone. Welcome. It's good to see you guys. Um, I know it's a late one and it's pretty impromptu. Um, I was sent this video and I just felt the need to talk about it. Um, as we all know, this tragic thing happened in Robb Elementary School in Texas, and it's very heartbreaking. Um, so many lives lost, and innocent lives, and as innocent as lives get. Um, and I gotta say that after watching this clip, um, I feel like it just reinforces my point that I've been making about what the problem actually is. Um, so, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm not gonna spend way too much energy talking about this particular subject. I feel like the last two live streams that I've done, I think I've basically covered my opinions on what the problem I believe to be really is, uh, and and I don't want to just keep repeating myself over and over and over again. But this, I feel like this particular clip just needs to be addressed. It's really fascinating to me. Um, so let me go ahead and again, like Amethyst said here, um, this could be pretty triggering. The entire subject matter is difficult to even think about. I think we're all still pretty fresh in our feelings about this and our emotions. Um, but let's just go ahead and
Por favor, no lo juzgan. Yo nomás quiero a los niños inocentes que se murieron. Perdóname.
now let me let I see a lot of people are pretty angry, um, and understandably so. But I'm not going to dismiss that what I'm seeing is a mother who unconditionally loves her son. I don't think that makes her a bad person. Um, I want to be clear about that. I don't think that unconditionally loving your child in any way, shape, or form makes you a bad person. I don't think that she should be judged for this. Personally, that's just my personal opinion. You guys are entitled to your opinions, and that's cool too. But I'm not going to throw judgment at this woman for loving her son unconditionally. I don't think that she's not coming off as somebody who has prepared or rehearsed what she might say if a news reporter cornered her and asked her questions or asked her to make a statement. She doesn't come off like that to me at all. But there are certain other things that come into factor here that
No tengo palabras. No tengo palabras para decir porque no sé lo que estaba pensando. Él tenía sus
Can you guys
razones.
can you guys read those captions okay? Do you need me to read those captions? Um I I don't think okay. We'll get into that, okay, boomer. We'll get into that. But I kind of agree with you, but I don't fully agree with you, and I will explain.
Para hacer lo que hizo y por favor no lo juzgan.
I mean, he's got straight Richard Ramirez vibes. And I'm not saying that because he's Hispanic. I'm saying he looks like Richard fucking Ramirez. Uh, so you know, this I've seen this dynamic between a teenager and his mom before, which again I will get into.
Era bien calladito,
What a
era
shocker
bien
right there.
callado.
He was a quiet boy. He was a quiet boy. How did I not see that coming?
Bien. Um, he was himself. Él no le molestaba a nadie, él no le hacía nada a nadie.
Yeah, so in her own words, she just basically said he was a quiet boy who kept to himself a lot. When is that going to be a red flag? Can somebody can somebody explain that to me, please? When is someone being a quiet boy who keeps to themselves a lot? Uh, like, but he was real active on social media, though. I mean, let's call a spade here.
Perdóname, hijo. Yo sé, él tenía sus razones.
What?
A que se acercaran más a sus niños en vez de poner atención a
I'm sorry. Hold
cosas,
on.
las otras cosas malas,
Okay.
las otras cosas.
So this is where
A que yo sé, él tenía.
this is where you go from unconditionally loving your child, okay, fine, to making excuses for him. Because that's what she's doing now. This is the line where she crosses for me. All right. Now, again, I want to be clear. I don't hate this lady and I don't blame this woman necessarily for her son's actions. I'm going to be very, very honest about that. I don't think that it's fair to blame her directly for this. But she is partially responsible, in my opinion, partially indirectly responsible. So here she is saying, forgive me, forgive my son. And I think what she means by that is, forgive me for saying and asking you to forgive my son. I think that's the context in what she means that by that.
Yo sé, él tenía sus razones.
And I know he had his reasons. Why in the world would you think that that would be the right thing to say at that moment? Why would an adult think that that is the correct, sensitive thing to say in that moment when asked that question? And of course, the reporter's like, well, what reasons could he possibly have had? If you know he had his reasons, if I'm a reporter, if I'm an investigative journalist, that's the next question I'm asking, is what he's saying right now. What reasons could he have had? Like, I want to know what those reasons are. Everybody wants to know what those reasons could possibly be, where you think that it's okay and you feel the overwhelming need to collect that much firepower and walk into a school and shoot up innocent kids.
A que se acercaran más a sus niños.
Okay, so here she's saying to get closer to their children instead of paying attention to things, the other bad things. That makes no sense. That right there is clearly an excuse. Now, for what her reasons being, I don't know. I would imagine, if I had to speculate, I would say that her reasons for coming up with that ridiculous, lame excuse is because she's just trying to justify loving her son unconditionally and making excuses for him. But this also indicates something else to me, people. This indicates to me that she's probably been doing this shit, what she's doing right now, for him his entire life, which in turn makes him, or enables his sense of entitlement, where he thinks that he's justified to lash out at the world because it's not going his way by shooting up a bunch of kids and becoming a social media infamous celebrity. Because that's exactly what his motive was, or else he wouldn't have been posting on social media. He wouldn't have been bragging about what his plans were. He would not have been bragging to his friends who he was talking to. This is a kid who, for whatever reasons, he's insecure. I'm not trashing anybody for being insecure or being antisocial. That's fine. I've known a lot of antisocial people. I'm antisocial now. You realize I don't fucking hang out with anybody. I'm either watching movies and chilling, going to the gym by myself. I don't work out with other people. I like working out alone, or I'm up here streaming. I like my interaction these days to be virtual too. I get that. I get that. Shit gets complicated. You know what I mean? I can actually relate to that. I'm not proud of it, but I'm not ashamed of it either. I'm just more comfortable in my own company. And I'm fine with that. But the problem is this kid wasn't fine with that. This kid wanted acceptance at any cost whatsoever. He longed to be remembered. He longed for significance. And he sought it through social media. And he did it into such an unhealthy way. And I don't want anybody here to take this the wrong way, okay? I don't. But to a certain degree, it happens to all of us, where we look at people in chat sometimes as just avatars and handles and not a real person behind that. For me, sometimes I have to make a conscious effort to remember that. And I feel that there's a lot of other people who do the same thing from time to time, whether they want to admit it or not. It's just easier. That's why people create troll accounts and then they go into people's chats and they, like it's because an avatar and a handle that's not your actual name has a way. And even if it is your real name there, and even if it is your real picture up there, it still has a way of dehumanizing you to some degree. It just does. But this guy didn't know how to separate that. And he got to a point to where he was so dependent on acceptance on social media that he started to look at everything and everyone as avatars and handles and not real people, which took away his respect for human life, which made it easy for him to shoot up a bunch of kids. And I'm not blaming social media, because I can get on social media and I can use social media to entertain myself or to be entertaining. But I know that I'm a real person behind the avatar that you guys see when I'm in a chat. When I'm talking, I'm a real person. When I'm chatting, I'm a real person. And I look at everybody else the same way. Sometimes you can tend to lose that. You get caught up in, oh, okay, cool, it's a chat war. And then you just start roasting somebody. You know what I mean? It just happens. Everything True Crime. Thank you so much. I don't care what his reason was. Many of us have mental health problems, and I'm tired of that being almost an excuse. My comment may be heartless, but I don't care. It's not heartless. It's a very sound observation, in my opinion, because I stated this earlier in my live stream earlier tonight or earlier today. Uh, I basically said the same thing. People are using mental health as an excuse, whereas I feel that each individual person, depending on the severity of your mental health, you have the ability to manage it in a productive manner. I have had suicidal thoughts many, many times. I struggle with depression. I struggle with anxiety, but I realize that it is up to me to manage it. And so I deal. And I don't use the fact that I'm feeling blue and this person doesn't like me, even though I want them to like me. And so since I can't make them like me, then I'm going to go out and get a gun and I'm going to shoot everybody. I'll show you. I don't do that. So it's not an excuse. Take the steps to manage your mental health. If you're thinking about killing people, well, guess what? There's something wrong with you. That should be a red flag in your own head. If you know killing is wrong, and I know this guy knows that killing is wrong, if you know killing is wrong and you start having these thoughts, take the steps to manage it so you don't hurt anybody. Because if you have the desire to hurt people, guess what? You're a piece of shit and you're a bad person. And so when you have a woman like this who coddles you your entire life, because I guarantee you, this is the kind of woman, looking at her now and hearing her talk. And like I said, I do feel bad for her. I do. But it's not her fault that she doesn't have a backbone. Maybe her kid is totally manipulative and just knows how to get his way with her and got the upper hand at a young age. I know. El bebé. Mijo, ¿qué quieres? What can I do? What do you want? Please, just stop crying. I'll give you anything you want. And so 18 years of that shit, well, guess what? This kid's going to act like he's entitled to everything. And here she is after he commits the most horrific fucking act of violence, and I don't know how long in this country. And here she is right here telling the world and making excuses for him.
Dios, en vez de poner atención a las cosas.
That see, like all the bad things. He just doesn't want to think about the bad things. He wanted to get closer to the kids. This is her fucking statement. He wanted to get closer to those kids instead of thinking about the bad things. Lady, your kid is the bad things. Sorry to break it to you. Your kid is the bad things. He aspired to it and then became it.
Las otras cosas malas. No, yo no tengo palabras, no sé.
This kid murdered her mom. And she's making excuses for him. She actually made the excuse saying that murdering those kids was his way to getting close to them. She said that shit. And perfectly imperfect, I agree with you. That part of me feels bad for her. It does. But it's not, Cherry, I get it. And I realize that I'm coming off like I'm being really harsh. But I'm being harsh not at her loving her kid unconditionally. I explained this earlier. A lot of you just got here. I am not faulting this woman for loving her child unconditionally. That is a commendable thing. That is a point of respect for sure. Because a lot of parents don't give a shit about their kids. Right, Cherry, I agree with you. That's what moms do. But the problem is that there's a limit to it. See, she didn't give me any indication that she sets boundaries for this child at any point in his life. Imagine, like, grandmothers are the most spoiling. That's the whole thing. That's the thrill of being a grandparent. Once you're a grandparent, I mean, I wouldn't know, but just what I've been told and what I've seen, grandparents are like, dude, I did my job raising kids. Now I just get to spoil them. I get to be the good guy all the time. That's the party. Once the grandchild comes into the world, haha, you still have the same dynamic with your own child. Like, please, shut up. You're not going to ruin this for me. This kid, yeah, I'm going to undermine you. You tell the kid they can't have candy. I'm going to sneak them some candy under the table. That's that rite of passage. That's what that is. Like, I raised my kids. Now you're bringing kids into this world. Shit, I just get to spoil them. So imagine this person being completely and totally, thank you so much, Susan Rodenhaver. I think you are spot on. Thank you. Appreciate that. If we see this woman and we see her on TV making excuses, not even putting on an act, just making excuses for her child in her own mind, trying to justify the actions of this 18-year-old young man, and still talking about him like he's 7 years old, because that's how she was talking about him. She was talking about him like he was still 7 years old. Oh, el pobrecito el niño. Ay, Dios mío. So, I mean, don't tell me that she also wasn't part of the problem. And let me play devil's advocate here. Let's say it's a mental health issue, right? Let's say that it's strictly a mental health issue, not any of the other things that I was saying, as far as entitlement and having no sense of empathy for anybody else. Let's just dismiss all that just for a second And let's entertain the idea that it's strictly a mental health issue. Right? Well, I mean, isn't it her responsibility as his parent to make sure that he gets the mental health help, the mental help that he needs? Isn't that her responsibility as a parent to do that? Because I'm getting the vibe of somebody when I see her who's been doing this her whole life to just try to run away from the idea that her son might have something wrong with him. Oh no, he's just tired. Punching holes in his wall. Oh, he's just had a bad day. I'll just fix him some arena de negrito, which is cream of wheat. Sorry, you guys don't know. Some arena de negrito. Quiere un cafecito. Ay, niño. Tiene que dormir nada más. Tiene que dormir. He just needs to sleep. He's cranky. Probably at 16, 17 years old, she was doing this. You know what I mean? When he's clearly showing signs of mental health, but you know, and in a lot of Hispanic households, a lot of Hispanic parents, they just don't want to realize and face the fact that their child may actually need help. No, not in our family. Not in our family. We don't have those kind of problems. You know, I mean, it happens a lot. There's just so much pride. And these moms, because this is a very typical type of mom in a Hispanic household. Because I've seen it 100,000 times. I grew up in Miami. I come from a Hispanic household. I have family. I've seen. I have aunts that were like this with their children. No, 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 no. Those problems are somebody else's problems. We don't have those problems in our family. We don't do that. That doesn't happen. It's the same syndrome that takes place when a mother doesn't want to admit that their child is being SA'd by a family member. They just don't want to face that fact. They blame the child for making up stories. I don't understand why you're acting out. What is your problem? Because that stuff doesn't happen in our family. We're a normal family. No, I'm just speculating, Cherry. I'm saying it's either one or the other. It's either one or the other. Either she ignored the signs or she just constantly made excuses for his behavior because she didn't want to deal with confrontation with him. Or both. And honestly, I'm betting on the latter. Both. That's what I'm betting on. I don't know that for a fact, but I've seen that type so many times. Like, look at the kids. The kid doesn't think that poorly of himself if he's sitting there taking selfies in the mirror and posting pics on social media, is he? Is he Mr. Antisocial when he's posting selfies, trying to look like a model? And I'm not necessarily saying she enabled the actual act of him doing this. I'm saying that she did not, she ignored the signs at least. She just ignored the signs and didn't want to face them. This is not somebody who wants to face the fact that her child is capable of evil. Oh, it's definitely a generation thing. I talked about this last night too. It's definitely a generation thing. That's part of it. That's part of it. Because, like I was saying, this kid comes from a generation where people aren't people anymore. They're social media profiles. That's what people are nowadays to that generation for the most part. And I'm not blaming social media. I'm just blaming our society being so influenced by social media and what social media can do, allowing this to happen to you. Like I said, I can look at people and be like, okay, those are real people behind that avatar and that handle. Because I'm a grown up who spent my childhood riding bikes outside, going to parties, socializing in a public area where I was too young to go to a club, but there was a public area where kids who were too young to get into a club would get together on Friday nights and socialize. Sometimes it's a mall. Sometimes it's a outdoor mall parking lot or a movie theater parking lot. For me, and it was Main Street in Miami Lakes. You can Google it right now. You'll see these fountains, you'll see a shopping area, and on Fridays and Saturday nights, that area would get packed with kids. And then, people just started burying their heads into their phones. They'd actually rather text somebody than talk to them. Some people are actually afraid to actually talk to somebody. I've seen that too, which is bizarre to me. I can't relate to it. I'm saying it's the norm, Cherry. I'm not saying every single person's like that. I'm saying it's the norm. That's we're a social media. We live in a social media society these days. Everything's done by social media. Businesses are run by social media. Everything is done by social media. And again, I'm not blaming social media. I think social media is actually a pretty awesome thing. It's a great, awesome way to network with other people, find people from your past, reconnect. It's great. When that's what I took advantage of the first time. Like when Facebook first came out, I met with people from high school that I hadn't talked to in years, didn't know where they went, anything that happened to them. I had no idea. And then Facebook came out, and then I was like, oh my God. All I would have to do is just type a name in, and I'd see them there and be like, holy shit, look at them with the kids. That's crazy. That's crazy. But it's silly to it's silly to deny that this is a social media generation. And this was an anti-social kid unless it was done through social media. That's how he felt comfortable interacting with people. But when you feel only comfortable interacting with people like that and nobody else, and you want the whole world to feel sorry for you, Well, then that's a great way to still find that loophole to still be social in some way, shape, or form without actually having to develop feelings for anybody else. Annie's in the house. Just joining, and I agree about mental health issues, but women have those same issues and they aren't shooting up schools at the ratio men are. I don't believe mental health is the driving factor. No, I agree, and you're right. Women aren't women aren't doing that. Um, women are not doing this. Uh, I I've never actually thought about that. That it's a male dominated thing, even though being a serial killer is usually a male dominated type of thing too. Um, but uh there's literally no excuse. Like the mental health thing to me at this point is weak. It's weak. Um because you're not going to tell me that uh females don't struggle with depression uh and social anxiety disorder or any of these factors that may or may not have contributed to this kid's behavior. You can't tell me that girls don't go through that. Um, so and you're right. They're not ordering a bunch of ammo and buying automatic semi-automatic weapons and shooting up and murdering kids. They're not doing that. Which also, you guys hear me say this, I think women are way stronger than men. This is one example because that to me just tells me that women are better at managing their feelings. Do I think he's evil or broken? Yes, evil to a degree, regardless of the to execute the crime. But is the root of evil or being broken? Just wondering. That's a good question. I mean, I'm not a mental health professional. I don't know. I'm also not a shitbag that has urges to shoot up kids. So I don't have a definitive opinion on that. But in theory, I think it's just an entitled kid who has been coddled his entire life, and every person in a position of authority in his life just blew him off and not blew him off, but in a way blew him off by patronizing him and by pacifying him with giving him what he wanted. And this developed a sense of entitlement in his nature as he developed into a man. And once you develop with that, once you go through that development stage through puberty and you have this set sense of entitlement, you know, that's it, you know. And then it gets to a point to where it's like, how strong is that sense of entitlement developed? Like, is it so strong that no matter what anybody does and no matter what hardships you go through in the world, are you still going to blame the world for your problems after you've made either no sound decisions to shape you going to a better place where life is better for you, or you fail when you make an effort and then you sit and cry about it, and then you have someone there that's always going to pick you up and baby you. And I get the feeling from that footage of his mom that that's what he had going on his entire life. Right. Yeah. I think that this kid just uh became so me, 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 me that he just saw people as social media profiles and not people with loved ones. I mean, what other possibility could you be could you come to the conclusion that it's justified to murder 10-year-olds on a mass level? I keep hearing that argument too, and from you, that an 18-year-old has an underdeveloped brain. They are irrational and irresponsible. The brain does not fully develop until around 25. There are more out there, trust me. Okay, so to me that sounds like an excuse. To me that just sounds like an excuse because an 18-year-old knows that it's wrong to kill people. Do they not? You're going to tell me that just because he hasn't developed to his full 25 ripe year, his 25th ripe year, that it's somehow an excuse for his behavior? No, no, sorry. When I was a little kid, right? I knew the difference between bad guys and good guys, and bad guys kill, good guys don't. I knew the difference. And yes, I struggle with depression. I struggle with anxiety. Always have. I was a very, very difficult child to deal with. Very, 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 very difficult. And as a matter of fact, I showed a lot of the same signs that somebody like this would have shown. I was extremely difficult. Ask any adult that was an adult when I was a kid. Ask any elder in my life. They'll be like, Jesus Christ. Like, they'll have to take a breath. Like, if you ask them, hey, how was Will as a kid? They're going to go, well, I promise you that's pretty much the reaction you're going to get. I promise you that. But I never felt the urge to go out and kill anybody. Like, I think that that's what makes the difference between a bad person and a good person. There's nothing, there's nothing, there's no excuse that this kid's going to have as far as I'm concerned. He knew it was wrong to do that. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been cryptic about it when he was bragging about it on social media. I agree with you, okay, Boomer. I agree with you. I don't think that he had any concept of consequences for his actions his entire life growing up, based on what I just saw from his mother. That's just my very loose opinion based on the information that I have. I wasn't there. I didn't grow up with the kid. I don't know. But I didn't get the vibe that this kid had any type of discipline in his home. He was never ever taught the concept of consequences for your actions. I don't believe that. Yeah, just a whole lot of nonsense that they can't make sense of. Just a whole bunch of just, you know, that's that's the saddest part of this whole thing. Like, one day you drop your kid off at school and then you get a phone call. And then there's news stations from all over the world trying to make sense of it. And your kid never comes home. And you got a bedroom full of stuff. No, and that's the thing is I don't think it makes this woman a bad person. And I don't think that she's to blame for what happened. I don't think it's fair to blame her for her son's actions. But I think that she's subject to some criticism. You know, I don't think it's unfair to criticize her to some degree. I mean, her actions aren't coming from an ugly, bad place. This is just a woman who just loved her kid. She might have had her own issues growing up to where she was like, when I have a kid, no matter what, I'm just going to be as kind and sweet to them as ever. I'm going to give my child the love that I never got, and nobody's ever going to get away from that. They're never going to take that away from me. That's very, very possible. Spivey, thank you so much. I absolutely agree. 100. Thanks for sharing the facts. Our society has forgotten about consequences. We have to do better and teach this future generation how to be better. That's the thing is we don't get to do that anymore. We've lost that power, in my opinion. And it was the same when I was a kid. Think about it. Think about this. And I want you to really, really, really think about it. Like, I'm not just saying, think about it, just throwing that out there. Like, this is something I really want you to really reach back into your childhood and remember. Did the television shows that you watched have more influence on you than your parents? Did some other adult in your life that you admired have more influence over you than your own parents? So do we really get to blame the parents? Because that's what raised me, really. What raised me really was the values of Knight Rider, the A-Team, Mr. T, Rocky. Those were my dads and moms. The Huxtables. You understand what I'm saying? There were good guys and there were bad guys, and I wanted to be like the good guys. G.I. Joe cartoons, Autobots, Transformers, protagonists and antagonists in movies. Movies were always my go-to, my escape from everything. I know way more about movies than I should. And that's because I had a very unhappy home. And if I had $5 to get together, my ass would walk to the movie theater and I would watch one movie and I would stay in the movie theater. I would spend my summers when I wasn't in school at the movie theater. I would get $5. I'd go to the movies and I would buy one matinee ticket for one movie. And then I would go to another movie when that movie was over. I just wouldn't leave the building. And either nobody noticed or they just didn't care. But I would spend the whole day in that theater watching movies for $5, basically stealing. And I would spend my summers doing this. You know how many times I saw Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures in the theater? How many times I saw Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey in the theater? How many times I saw the first Batman with Michael Keaton in the theater? I would go every day. Because I hated it at home. So think about it. Think about it. So what does that tell you? If I related to the protagonist in movies and that had more of an influence over me than the adult authority figures in my life, right? Is that because I related to them because I'm a good person? Because the thing is people want to argue, well, these video games that are violent and blah blah blah, right? These video games and these movies, these dark movies. I watched those same dark movies. And again, there was protagonists and antagonists in those movies, right? But I always related to the protagonist and I wanted to be like them. Now, is that because the movie influenced me so much? Or is it because I related to it because that's where my heart was? Because I'm a good person. So when somebody who is influenced by these mass shooting villains in these movies, is it because it's in their nature to relate to the antagonist rather than the protagonist? So is the movie to blame? No. That person, even if that movie had influence over them, it's because they related to certain characters. Because it was in their heart. They were like, yeah, I get that feeling. I get the feeling of wanting to kill everybody. We are all accountable for our own actions, people. Like, dude, I did things as a kid. I mean, it would take having to lock me up in a padlocked closet to stop me from doing some of the things that I did. Wasn't my parents' fault. It was because I was like, I'm doing that, and nobody's going to stop me because my mind is set on doing that. Even as a child, my parents aren't to blame for that. You know what I mean? My mom wasn't to blame for that. My brother my brother set a very positive influence for me as an older brother. I just didn't go the same direction he did. I refused to for no good reason. No good reason. Does that mean that I didn't have the proper influence in my life? Well, upbringing is key when it comes to I would say example. That's where leading by example is powerful as it is. I mean, that goes in the home, that goes in the job, the workplace. You know what I mean? Like if I had a job and my manager was just sitting in their office and not doing jack shit and just barking orders at people, I would quit within a week. I'd be like, I'm not working for that asshole. But if I had a manager that was out there sweeping the floor, wiping shit down, spending the whole shift doing that shit, and then asking me, hey, can you grab this? I'm going to be like, dude, what else can I do for you? I just don't know what needs to be done, but just tell me what I need to do and I'm happy to do it. I can't stand seeing you working so hard and I don't know what to do. So when you have parents that are just like, do as I say, not as I do, that shit doesn't fly. Like it doesn't even fly being like, I don't I don't want you to make the same mistakes I did. That shit doesn't work. Like chances are your kid's going to go astray and find their own way if you can't set the proper example for them. That happened with me. That happened with me. I'm not proud of it, but it happened. I did my best and I was like, man, I just don't want you to fucking deal with the same shit that I did, make the same mistakes I did and have to struggle to make a buck at 30, 40 years old. I don't want you to go through that. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you don't set that example and be like, hey, look what I got, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to work out, chances are. You have to set that example. for your kid or your subordinate at your job to to go the path that you want them to go, the only way is to set the example for them. That's the only, you have to earn their respect. And the only way to earn their respect is by giving them something to respect, showing them something to respect. Otherwise, you know, nobody fucking with any common sense based anything on theory and makes life decisions based on theory. Nobody does that. You know what I mean? So, like, if you're sitting there wondering why your kid's not going the direction that you want your kid to do, and you're also boggled because they're so smart, and you're like, well, I don't understand. They're so smart. Chances are it's because you failed to set the right example for them. Well, I'm their parent. They're supposed to just do what I tell them to do. Doesn't work that way. It's human nature to follow the example of someone that you respect. And if you haven't done anything to earn somebody's respect, that shit's not going to happen. That includes kids. It's not going to happen. Let's see, Spivey. Honestly, as a parent, I feel lost too. I've tried to my son right from wrong, to teach my son right from wrong, and hard work matters. But I'm afraid at this point it is a lost cause. But I can say I tried, and I taught my son better. I I I can relate to that statement quite a bit, more than you know. And all I can tell you is that I hope it gets better for you, man. I really do. You seem like a really good person with a good heart, and we can only do as much as we can do. And I struggle with, had I made better decisions growing up, would things be different? But um, it doesn't do me any good to do that. Doesn't even do my kids any good to do that. You know what I mean? It doesn't do anybody any good to do that. So all I can do is just live every day trying to be the best person that I can be. That's all I can do. That's the only logical thing that I can bring myself to. The only logical conclusion that I can bring myself to is to just do the best that I possibly can now. You know. Um. So I feel you, man. I do. Well, that's because they're shitbags, dude. That's my point. That's my point. In in the midst of all this rambling that I'm doing, people, I make no mistake that my conclusion is that you are just a bad seed. If you think that it's somehow justified in your mind to to shoot up a bunch of small kids in a school because you don't like the way life's going, you're a bad, shitty person who can't take any responsibility for yourself. And I don't care that he's 18 and he's not 25 yet. That's ridiculous. Like, he's old enough to know right from wrong. That makes a lot of sense too. If he is, I don't know if he's an only child. I have no idea. Yeah, see, you must be very proud. You must be very, very proud. But to a certain degree, we are responsible for how our kids turn out. We are. We're absolutely responsible for how our kids turn out. You know, if I had made better decisions growing up, I would have likely been able to provide a much more structural environment for my children, and and they would have had a better chance of going a better path, for sure. That's my fault. That's my fault. That's my job as a man, and I failed to do that. You know what I mean? Like, your job as a man as a father, is to create a structured environment, and that's what you bring children into, is a structured environment. No business bringing kids into a chaotic environment. You have no business doing that, and that's exactly what I did. Like, if there's not a functional environment provided to your children at a young age, you got to understand that's the example that you set for them. So you don't get to be like, oh my God, I'm so disappointed in the way that my kid handles things. And I'm not even talking about myself necessarily right now. What I'm talking about is just generally speaking. Who knows? This kid was probably just brought up in a whole in an environment. Maybe the mom, she had to work her ass off, and she was probably never home, and had her mother watching and helping raise the kid while she was out at work working God knows how many jobs to put food on the table and keep a roof over their head. And she didn't have time to be a hands-on mom. And so the only time that she had with him was not going to be wasted on discipline in her mind. Maybe just to coddle him. This is my time that I get to spend with my kid. I'm going to cherish it. So I'm going to be sweet to him all the fucking time. And I'm going to baby him, because I never got the chance to baby him when he was a baby. That could have totally been her attitude. Does that make her a bad person? No. But it doesn't mean that it didn't contribute to the type of man that he was shaped into. Was it deliberate? Was it malicious? No. Was it irresponsible? Maybe not. Like I said, maybe the circumstances were, I have to work this many jobs to make sure that this kid has clothes and food in his mouth and a roof over his head. But that doesn't take away from the fact that she just in a television interview stated or implied that he did what he did in order to get closer to other kids and not think about the bad things in the world. She said that shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's not that shit's not okay. That indicates to me that this is somebody who just didn't want to face the fact that this kid had problems and needed it to be dealt with. And she looked at this kid up to the age of 18 years old as still a small child, not facing the reality that he was growing into a man just because she didn't want him to grow up. She always wanted him to be a baby. That is the indication that I got from the person that I saw in that interview. As a matter of fact, let's watch it one more time. We just have to do that, just so you guys get an idea. That you guys that have been in here for a minute, let's go over this again, and you tell me if you think I'm wrong.
No lo juzgan. Yo nomás quiero a los niños inocentes que se murieron. Perdóname. No tengo palabras. No tengo palabras para decir porque no sé lo que estaba pensando. Él tenía sus razones para hacer lo que hizo.
Right there. Excuse number one, which is the lamest excuse. He had his reasons for what he did. How could you possibly say that in the same breath as saying, I feel so much for these innocent kids and their families? He had his reasons? Really?
Y
Please don't judge him. Dude, I'm judging the fuck out of that kid. I'm not even gonna I'm not even gonna, yeah, I'm judging the fuck out of that kid. That kid was old enough to know right from wrong. That kid was old enough to know right from wrong. Period.
por favor, no lo juzgan.
Yeah, because this kid has such low self-esteem that he's got to take those selfies and pose and, post it on social media. Right. He's such a victim, right? I don't buy it.
Era bien calladito. Era bien callado, bien.
I can't get over that.
He was himself. Él no.
Now, this bothers me. This is something that I caught earlier that I forgot to point out the last time. I'm glad we're going over this again. Listen to her pronunciation when she says he was himself.
No le molestaba. Él no le molestaba a nadie. Él was himself. He was himself. He was himself. He was himself.
That is perfect English pronunciation. This isn't somebody who's trying to struggle how to say something in English. She's speaking in complete and total Spanish. Now, maybe this is a Spanish news source that's interviewing her and they asked her to speak in Spanish, or it's some sort of act to where it's making her seem like this poor little, oh, I came to this country and it's hard for me because I don't know the language and blah blah blah. Because I've seen people do that shit. I have seen people do that shit. But the way that she pronounced he was himself was perfect pronunciation.
Él no le molestaba a nadie.
My mom is full-blooded Dominican, people. And she has more of an accent than this woman here. And my mother has a better vocabulary, chances are, than any of you in this chat. A better English vocabulary than any of you in this chat. She spent my entire life learning English and taking college courses. My mom would just take college. She would just like graduate college and then go back to college. It was the weirdest thing in the world. She was always going to college, always learning.
Él no le hacía nada a nadie.
Now, you see this? Right there, she's like, she does that cliche shit. I pointed this out earlier. He was a quiet boy. He kept to himself. She said that in not so many words. Let's hear that one more time.
Bien. He was himself. Él no le molestaba a nadie, él no le hacía nada a nadie.
He didn't bother anybody. He didn't do anything. He kept to himself.
¿Qué les dices a los familiares de ellos?
Perdóname, hijo. Yo sé, él tenía sus razones.
¿Qué razones pudo haber tenido?
A que se acercaran más a sus niños
What?
en vez de poner atención a las
Listen, look, read those subtitles right there. To get closer, why did he do it? What were his reasons? To get closer to their children instead of paying attention to things, the other bad things. So right here, making excuses in her mind and justifying her son's actions.
cosas, las otras cosas malas.
And I don't see any tears either. But here's the thing, though. I don't doubt that there were tears. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna start comparing her to Amber Heard. You know what I mean? Like, for all we know, and by the looks of her eyes, it looks like she's done all the crying that she possibly can. I'm sure this lady has been crying for days. I mean, I don't think that she even knows how to make any sense of it. You know? I mean, because it's also not 100% fair to like pick apart every single thing that this woman's saying, because like would you know how to make sense of, I mean, what if your kid fucking ended up doing that shit? How the fuck do you even address that? How do you even approach that? No, that was his mother. Antimony. It's good to see you, by the way. That was his mother. He shot his grandmother. He shot his grandmother, and then he showed up to the school and killed 21 people. 2 faculty members and 19 kids. Oh, okay. So she's still alive? Okay. Oh, Texas is totally a death penalty state. That kid is not, yeah. Yeah. That kid is not getting a you know, too incompetent to stand trial type situation. That's not going to happen. I promise you. The people in that state want justice. The people in this country want justice. People in the world want justice. And that's not going to fly. Well, I mean, he's dead actually, so it doesn't matter. I forgot that the cops actually killed him. It was actually a border patrol agent that killed him. So we're never going to see, these parents are never going to actually get that justice. You know, I mean, it's just a whole bunch of shit that just doesn't make sense. It's just a really fucked up, horrible, horrific day for all of those parents and those kids and the families of all those victims. There's no interrogating him and getting an understanding as to why. It's always really tragic when things end up like that, when it ends up in a suicide or it ends up with a you know, getting shot by the cops. There's no real closure because you don't get to pick their brain and find out what the fuck they were doing it for. I mean, it's really, really sad, man, that, you know, this just continues to happen. This continues to happen. And I swear to you, it's going to continue to happen. As long as these things happen and make news, and they will always make news because it's not in our nature as empathetic human beings to not shed light on a situation like this. Like, what are we going to do? Ignore it? You know, it's a surefire way to get your name on the news. If you're a fucking little narcissistic social media hound, grifting little clout chasing narcissistic shit. I said narcissistic twice. Uh, it's a surefire way to do it. It's the most cowardly and bottom feeding manner of doing so. But make no mistake that is the point. To gain some sort of relevance. So this is going to continue to happen. And I promise you that the only way that it's ever going to stop happening is if we end up in a police state where we no longer have any rights. Okay? Or we're on the path to no longer having any rights. Or, as I stated before, and I ended my last live with this, I'm not necessarily going to end it now yet, but I ended my last live by saying this. In my personal opinion, the solution to stopping bad people with guns is for good, rational people to start carrying them. That is my personal opinion. Because guns aren't going anywhere, people. They're here. They're being manufactured on a mass level every single day by several different companies, several different very large corporations. Guns are here. They're not going anywhere. They've been here for over 200 years, and they're going to stay here. So the bottom line is, as far as that goes, as far as the gun issue goes, the only way to stop these mass shootings from actually happening, and the only way to counter bad, irrational, shitty people with guns is for rational, decent, law-abiding people with good hearts to carry guns too. So that the bad people, because they are cowards, make no mistake about that. That's why they go after kids. They go after innocent people in public situations like a music festival or a nightclub or a shopping grocery store or a school, is because they know that they have a window of time to where they could just pick people off and put their names in the paper. But you walk into a Walmart where you know that the norm now is the majority of those people who are just decent people who are just trying to shop, and there's an undertone of, don't try to fucking shoot anybody in here because somebody's going to take you the fuck down. That coward is not going to walk into that place where he's likely going to get shot before he even has a chance to kill anybody. Once he draws his weapon, somebody else is going to be right there drawing their weapon too, and they're going to take that person down because they're thinking rationally while that other person is not. And they're going to already have the advantage over them because they're already capable of rational thought. So no, I don't believe gun control is even remotely the answer. Everybody wants to say, oh, mental health. Like, dude, doing a background check on mental health isn't going to do jack shit. Giving somebody a psych exam in order before they can buy a gun isn't going to do jack shit. If that person wants to buy a gun bad enough, they will get around that. And if they can't get around that, they will find an illegal way to buy a gun because they have an agenda. And you're not going to get away in the way of an irrational person's thought process and their path to meeting their agenda. You're just not going to get in between that. A person that irrational is that driven. That's a firm decision, people. When you decide you're going to purchase a semi-automatic weapon and you're going to kill innocent people, that is a firm decision. A gun law is not going to get in your way of that. That I can guarantee you. Right. That's 100% correct. Rational people aren't killing classrooms full of kids. Exactly. You know what rational people are doing if they're armed? Taking down irrational people that are killing kids in classrooms. That's what they would do if they're allowed to make that choice to be able to arm themselves. As long as they have the training and they take safety precautions, I think faculty members should have the freedom to arm themselves. And yes, take other precautions too. I'm not talking about making things the wild, wild west. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, of course, metal detectors, up the security in the school. Sure. But I'd rather there be a ratio of rational people out there with guns than irrational people out there with guns. A ratio of rational people with guns over the amount of people who are irrational and carrying guns. I feel much safer that way because guns aren't going fucking anywhere. And I don't like guns any more than anybody else. That's the funny thing about it. I don't like guns any more than anybody else. I'm not a fan of them. Am I proud of myself if I go to the gun range and I do a good job? It's because I feel safer. That's it. It's simply because I got to a point where I was like, okay, cool. I know if I fire it this way, I'm likely to hit my target. That's the only pleasure that I get, is that sense of accomplishment that I know, and I feel a little safer if I have a gun and I'm firing it, that I know what I'm doing and I'm going to hit my target more likely. But I don't feel like it adds inches to my dick. I don't think it makes my balls any bigger. I don't think it makes me any more of a man. I don't think it makes me any more powerful. You know, I got to be honest with you, Judes. I don't give a shit. That's why I don't live there. I live here. I don't care. I care about feeling safe here. That's it. I care about feeling safe here and having the liberty and freedom to do whatever the fuck I want as long as it's not at somebody else's expense. That's what I care about. Like, just here, locally, like within my personal environment, I live by a philosophy of however you feel or think about me is none of my business. How do you think I feel about other countries looking at me and looking at this country? That's none of my business. I don't care what they think. I don't live there. I'm not worried about that. I'm not dependent on those other countries in any way, shape, or form. I don't care what they think about us. It's arbitrary to even worry about it. Aren't you embarrassed? No. No. I'm embarrassed about our leaders. You know, I'll tell you that. I'm embarrassed of the choices that we have for leadership here. That's embarrassing to me because those people don't represent me. I didn't choose them as candidates, and I didn't vote for any of them. So yeah, to a certain degree, that's embarrassing. Having a president who can't even get through a sentence and falls asleep in mid-sentence, that's embarrassing. Yeah. Because I didn't have anything to do with that fucking decision. And yet it's under the guise that I did based on a vote when I didn't have anything to do with that decision. I didn't even pick the guy in the first place to run. I didn't have any say over that. I was embarrassed during the debates. And Biden and Trump were bickering like middle schoolers. That was embarrassing. But how other people feel of whether or not our country should have laws that regulate gun control or not, fuck them. That's where you breach your boundaries with me. I'll give you the fact that we have leaders that are prone to completely and totally making fun of. That's fine. Like having leaders like AOC and Pelosi, yeah, that's funny to me. You get to make fun of us for that, sure. I don't blame you for that. But to try to make me feel embarrassed because I have the liberty to arm myself, and that's exactly how this country was founded in the first place, was because we beat tyranny. That's what we did. We no longer wanted to be part of a tyrannical government. So we stood up and we beat them. And that I'm proud of. And those values hold true to my heart. And I really appreciate you guys in the chat, man, because like you guys are being very, very respectful, even though we disagree with a lot of things. This is, you know, this is where you can do that. I mean, your opinions are going to be prone to someone else's counter opinion. And as long as you can handle that, you're in the right spot. You're in the right spot. And I want you to feel welcome, even though you don't agree with me. If you don't agree with me, as long as you're respectful in chat to everyone else in chat, you're good here, man. I mean, see, wow, after I just said that too. And you're taking this way too personally, man. You're taking it way too personally. I'm just being honest. You asked me a question and I answered it honestly. You're taking it personally. That's not me taking it personally. I'm telling you, I do not care what anybody else thinks of our gun laws. I just don't. It's none of their business what our gun laws are. You know what's funny? I just moved uh, to a not so populated area in Tennessee. I'm nowhere near a big city. I'm at least 40 minutes from a big city, and it's really funny too because like it's the South, man. Uh, and I have yet to see a rebel flag. I live in a really, really old town, and I have yet to see a rebel flag, which is I noticed this. I've been going around exploring a little bit in the little town, and everybody's been really, really nice. It's a really great little community. It's a historical community, and 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 they seem really fixated on their old ways, and there are more churches in this area than there are places to eat. There's more churches in a 1 mile area than there is than there is places to eat. That's where I'm living. Like I am living in a prime example of a spot in the Bible Belt. What's going on here in chat? Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. And it's funny because I have yet to see a rebel flag, and I'm in the spot for it. Could it be that we're making that much progress in our society? Could it be? Maybe not, but it's a nice thought though, isn't it? You know? It's a nice thought. I mean, yeah. And I don't that's just my opinions. Those are my political opinions. Those are my uneducated political opinions, people. Some of you guys who disagree with me might know a hell of a lot more, likely do know a hell of a lot more than I do. That's quite possible. Um, I am a layman to a layman, you know, and you know what I mean? But you're entitled to your opinions, man. That's fine, you know. But if my opinions make you angry, this isn't the spot for you, man. It just isn't. Because your opinions aren't making me angry. You know what I mean? You're free to them. Yeah, I think having political arguments is like one of the most. I think it's the most arbitrary thing to do. That and having like a religious argument, like a religious debate, like basically you're arguing with something that somebody has conviction behind as far as what they believe in. You know, like I think that the fact that these days, I think the fact that somebody has that quality that they actually strongly believe in something, depending on you know if it's productive in any way, shape, or form, if it's productive to their lives, I think that's something to respect. I think it's no matter what it is. You know what I mean? Like if you're an intelligent person and you feel strongly about Trump being like this great president, you know what I mean? And you have these old school Christian values that I don't necessarily share. You know what I mean? Like or traditions anyway, these old school Christian traditions. You know what I mean? That's not something that but I respect it. Like if it's something that guides you to live a life that makes you productive and you contribute positivity to your environment through those means, cool. That's great. Just because I don't believe in the same things that you do, you know what I mean? Like I don't, I'm not. I don't necessarily agree with it. It's not even that I don't agree with it. I don't have a problem just because I don't attend church and I don't believe and follow the Bible word for word. It doesn't mean that I haven't adapted and try to apply the same values that it teaches to my life. I think I actually do that. Inadvertently, I do that. And you'll find that most religions and most faiths, they teach the same core values. My theory on that, honestly, this is why I can't like decide on like a faith and start congregating in one church. Like I just can't do that because I feel like it's a cultural issue. It's a regional and cultural issue. I truly believe that it's all, if you believe in God, it's all the same God. I think it's crazy to sit there and go, well, my God's real and your God isn't. That's crazy because I believe it's all the same God. It's just a regional and cultural issue on how people have chosen to worship or apply this God into their lives to make them feel better about themselves and live better lives and treat their neighbors and people within their immediate environment better. They teach the same core values. All of these religions do. Muslim, Krishnas, Christians, Judaism, all of them do. Like that's something that you can't deny. You may disagree and be like, no. My God is my faith, and I believe that's the only God. And blah, blah. Okay, that's cool. I respect that. That's fine. But you cannot deny that all of these different faiths teach the same core values. If you actually do a little homework and look into them, they all teach the same core values. And that's a beautiful thing. I think that's amazing. I think that's really, really awesome. Like, what's more productive is it to find a reason to argue with somebody over it? Like, oh yeah, let's get into this debate, or is it more productive to just be like, man, okay, I'd love to learn more about what your faith is and what you believe in and what your practices are to worship uh or to have a closer relationship to who you consider to be God. Like, what's more productive? Think about that. To have a debate over it or to want to learn more and get a little taste of another culture. So, you know, we all just think the world's just going to be a much better place once we learn to take more accountability for ourselves, um, strive to be more independent, you know, emotionally, mentally, physically, just strive to be more independent and just have some tolerance for one another. Try to walk in somebody else's shoes for a minute before you're quick to shut them down. You know? Oh, Cherry does everything for me. Cherry's the best thing that this channel has. I think she's a little I don't think that she's loving the subject matter too much. But she's also somebody who I can disagree with, and I could always appreciate, regardless. I am very spoiled. I'm very spoiled. Um, but I'm grateful. I'm very, very grateful to be spoiled. Well, I'm glad you're here, Glow with Glow, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. Well, see, that's the thing is I don't want this to be the type of channel that like, okay, well, we don't talk about that here because it causes problems. I it shouldn't cause problems. We should be perfectly willing to discuss. You should, you know what I mean? You should feel perfectly comfortable discussing the things that you deeply believe in this chat. You should feel perfectly comfortable doing that. I don't want to create an environment to where you feel uncomfortable doing that. You know, uh, but I'm gonna go ahead and end it here, guys. I love you guys very much. We will do this again very soon, my friends.